Is that a trick question? This man was a bona fide scrub. Bona fide scrub.
This dude, I believe he's a bona fide superstar right now.
Right. Oh, well, of course, it's all about winning, baby.
Yeah. My question to you is, because the one player here that I think the future of Dallas almost surrounds, and I'm not talking about Luka, because we know what Luka is. We know Luka's a superstar. Mm-hmm. We know he's probably going to maybe win the MVP this year, or win maybe a couple MVPs throughout his career. Kristaps Porzingis, do you have any faith in him rediscovering the potential that made him a $30+ million player?
No, to put it simply. I watched the Knicks Porzingis and then the Mavericks one. I just watched a couple of breakdown videos. And the big criticism of him is that he hasn't evolved. Mm. So he actually hasn't. He's got that one sort of face up, and because he's 7'3", can shoot over anyone. But in terms of post moves, he hasn't obviously put on size so he can back people down. He can't dribble around short at like guards or anything like that. He hasn't really evolved in terms of a player. And I've heard he's a lot of tensions built up. He hates the attention that comes along with Luka. I've heard he's even alluded that Luka's a ball hog of sorts, and I think that's almost on him. Like if he was more effective, if he could actually stay on the court, maybe he'd actually get the ball. But so I worry about his attitude. I mean, you and I think we talk once a week about players' attitudes and mental toughness and everything, and you can almost get a sense from them. And in terms of Porzingis wanting to be great, I don't think he has that same thing, because he just seemed to a completely different player when he was at the Knicks in terms of mentality. He seemed pretty tough. Like he was going up contesting every shot, and a completely different attitude. And I think he's completely lost that at the Mavericks. His confidence will be down though. He's not on the court enough, and obviously all the attention's at Luka. But yeah, from the Porzingis I see now, he doesn't look anything close to that player that signed a $30 million a year. Do you like? Yeah, do you like him as a player?
I like the idea of him. Is that fair? Yeah, I like the idea of him. 7'3" with that skill set. Look, this might sound a bit harsh, but I think it's factual that there are some NBA players out there who are happy to get their big contract, their money, and kind of just wander through the contract and not necessarily strive to be the best they can possibly be. And I don't think there's any harm in that. Like, good on him for getting the $30 million contract, and it's going to piss off Mavericks fans, but from a non-Mavericks fan point of view, if he just wants to wander through his contract and not try and be the best he can be, then that's up to him. That's fine. He still gets his money. It's disappointing from a fan's point of view, because I think he can be a great, great player in the league. But if he wants to do that, then so be it. From a Mavericks point of view, right now and in the playoffs last season, you're paying $30 million for a 7'3" spot-up shooter. That is literally... Because when Luka handles the ball, he sits out on the perimeter and literally just waits for the ball to be passed to him. And I don't know. I think some of the attitude is, you just spoke about it a bit there, his post-game. I watched him in multiple games last year against my Warriors and in other games against other teams. And there were times, the Warriors would be going with Draymond Green at center at 6'6". Now, Draymond Green's one of the best defenders this league's seen in the last, ever, throughout history.
Ever. Yeah.
But he's 6'6" at the end of the day. And Kristaps, you're 7'3", mate. You're going up against these guys that are nearly like a foot shorter than you. Can you not just back them down and just shoot over the top of them from a couple of feet?
No, he can't.
Like the only thing he has is a face-up mid-range from the mid-range area, and it's just like, really? Like that's like sometimes it'll go in and it looks great, and you're just like, oh yeah, well that's clearly what he does. He's 7'3" and he can shoot over anyone. Like it's kind of like a Kevin Durant situation. But he just doesn't have the mentality or the attitude. And he's not KD in terms of the ball handling and stuff like that. But right now you're paying $30 million for a spot-up shooter, and you can get that for $10 million. So
you can get that for $10 million.
You can get that on the veterans minimum. Like, I don't know.
It's really hard as a Mavericks fan, I'd imagine. It's a fantastic story. 2 European generational talents. They're both young, could dominate for the next decade, but he just won't make it up. Obviously, Luka is the Mavericks. The Mavericks are the Luka.
Sorry, can I just finish up on the Porzingis chat just before we move on from that? I just want to say one thing. We were just talking about his offensive game. It's also his defense. Okay, for starters, he's 7'3" and he just doesn't really rebound much for a guy that's 7'3". And when he came into the league, we thought, wow, 7'3", long wingspan, can be a shot blocker. Doesn't really do that. And then we kind of thought with his athleticism when he came into the league, might actually be able to switch out onto the perimeter a little bit. I understand why injuries may have kind of derailed that idea, But now he almost becomes a defensive liability as well, where if he's brought out on the perimeter, he just can't guard anyone. And he's not as a good enough shot blocker now where that makes him useful either. So it's not just the offensive side of the ball where he's a spot-up shooter, as I said, and does really not much else. It's also the defensive side of the ball where he's a flat-out liability to the point where is he actually in your best 5 players down the stretch of playoff games? I don't know.
He averaged 2.4 in that year, that Knicks year. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. He averaged 2.4
second
blocks
season
in
or
that
something.
Yeah, night and day the sort of player he is. But yeah, it's horrible. He got exposed so easy on those pick and rolls against the Clippers.